live stream, a second one where we talk business, compliance, and the unexpected questions based power, or the power of questions and the unexpected results you get from asking questions. And I have to admit, I made a few minor changes from last week's episode based on your feedback. Basically, you guys were asking for more interview style live streams, so more interviews, more often interviews, not so much just me talking, not so many deep dives. So and you've asked for weekly rather than every 2 weeks, which is fantastic. So rather than going on a 2 week schedule, we are hopping in straight away with a weekly schedule. So let's kick this off. Every Thursday, which is Wednesday afternoon in the US. So every week on Wednesday, I'm going to do an interview one week and a solo session deep dive the other week. And the interviews are people that inspire me, people in business, entrepreneurs, people that deal with compliance, risk leadership, cybersecurity, all that sort of stuff. But we're kicking off this week with a very special person. And you all know him because his name is Gerard Blokdijk, or as I call him, Gerard. And Gerard is my business partner. He's the co-founder of The Art of Service. And apart from being the Chief Innovation Officer at The Art of Service, he's also my husband of almost 24 years. So let's get him into the stream. So it's not just me, and it is me and Gerard. So welcome to the Art of Service live stream.
Thanks for having me. It's fun. This works.
It works really well. It's actually quite good. So 24 years ago we married, and 22 years ago we moved to Australia to start a wild adventure of setting up a business in a completely new country where we had no network, we knew nobody, but we just thought it's the two of us, we can do this, we have value to add, and we can't wait to start this adventure. But before we dive into Art of Service, what we do now, the Self Assessment Toolkits and the Critical Capability KanBans products, how did it all start for you? What is your journey to come to this point in time where you are the Chief Innovation Officer at The Art of Service? I already explained my background as a teacher and a consultant, but where did your journey start?
Well, Ivanka, my journey started back in the 80s into mainframes, IBM mainframes to be specific. We had a large conglomerate of mainframes in the Netherlands, where I grew up, where I was born, and I was very interested and keen to figure out how these things work, because they were a mystery to me back then. So I got into mainframes operations management, service management, for large insurance companies and banks, basically. So large financial institutes. So just imagine these massive halls filled with IBM mainframes buzzing, and the smell of electricity in the air. It was mesmerizing to me as a 20-something. Like, what the hell is going on here? And figure out how everything works and how everything is connected. So I did a lot of studying over that period, over that time, how these mainframes worked and what kind of software was involved, what kind of hardware was involved, how it was all connected, and became operations manager there. And then that was for one main company, an insurance company, and there was a lot of headhunting going on in the Netherlands. So you could broaden your scope easily to other organizations. So I ended up at large banks like ABN AMRO, ING Bank, the Dutch Bank, Federal Bank, etc., for quite a while. We did a lot of consolidation of mainframes. Mainframes scaled up and mainframes scaled down, and new systems came in, old systems went out, upgrades all the time. Security was something back then that was really starting to ramp up, because originally mainframes were solely for internal use only and backed by dumb devices, basically. So security was more focused on internal security, which is can person A access application B and nothing else. except apart from what we're seeing these days, where cybersecurity is way more prevalent, obviously, than internal security back then. So that was that.
So
Yep.
talking about security, because I remember you saying that when you worked for a bank in the northern part of the Netherlands, you actually had to program security for mainframes. Was that your first sort of foray into technical programming? Is that how your programming skills developed?
The problem we had was we got a new operating system, and the operating system was for the bank and for all the workstations in the local branches. The workstations they had new software on them written by IBM, but the security software that came with it didn't integrate with our existing mainframe applications. So we had to build a layer in between that for the workstations to securely communicate with our internal applications through the new IBM software. IBM's do-it-your-own software to do that at the time was called REX, R-E-X-X. And I basically started from scratch to build a security system to ensure that person A was only able to log into application B, etc. And that lasted a few years until IBM came out with a solution that was obviously much better than what we had put together. Houtje touwtje, as they say in the Netherlands, you scramble it together with whatever you've got, sticks and stones. But it worked. It worked really well. But it had its flaws as well. It was not very scalable. That's one of the main flaws. So it got slower over time the more people we attached to it. But that all got fixed by marvelous IBM later on. So that's an example of you run into an issue with security for this example, where there is not a solution yet available by a vendor, and you have to work it out yourself how to create a viable solution for your organization to work with. And that made me chief security officer there and then for that large bank.
So how did you then move in from chief security officer and really focused on the back end, like the mainframe side of the business, into, because I remember in Amsterdam you worked as a capacity manager for, I think it was a similar bank or slightly different?
ING Bank. Yeah, also for mainframes. Security management was security officer. I was a security officer. And then I got interested in the capacity that these mainframes actually use. Mainframes back then were a large investment, and they were usually written off over a short period of time. If we could get every inch and every drop of investment out of that mainframe investment in the best possible way, that would be beneficial for our IT budget, obviously. So capacity management was really interesting to me. And when we dove into capacity management of the direct access storage devices, capacity management of the mainframes, the CPUs were really expensive back then, CPU cycles. So we did daily tweaking with a team of 8 people overall the mainframes to ensure that capacity was up to scratch, and forecast as well when we actually would need an upgrade and discuss that with IBM and negotiate that with IBM. So the capacity management really gave me the focus on the overarching processes that enable an IT organization, a major enterprise, to run. And it's not just obviously security management, it's not just capacity management, but also incident management, problem management, a help desk, service level agreements.
Starts to sound like ITIL service management.
Exactly. Starts to sound like ITIL service management. So that's the natural progression into service management and a natural progression into looking into ITIL. ITIL back then, we're looking at was the early 90s. Just came into play into the Netherlands. I worked with a company called Rijnhaven back then, Popcom, and they did a lot of training courses for mainframe personnel, mainframe staff, enterprise personnel. And we organized training courses for them. And we started with ITIL Foundations and ITIL Service Management and ITIL Practitioner and all those. So we rolled those out, the whole training courses that go with it. And that was really helping organizations, enterprise organizations, the organizations that I worked with as a practitioner, the banks and the insurance organizations, to roll out processes to manage all these activities. And more than that, the processes themselves were already there because the majority of them were siloed in the organization. For example, I've been a capacity manager for a large bank. We were very siloed. There was not a lot of input output to other processes. We got our own information and we did our own reporting on it, and we made our own decisions based on that, which was the case with all the other ITIL processes as we know them basically from back then. So that's where my interest came from, to pull it all together. And we rolled out a lot of courses and training courses to put a process layer in place for those institutions to basically understand how the input and output works of each process and how it's connected to the other processes and what it means to the other processes. And we did that for years and years and years. And that's where my service management background came from, the training and the education. And I did that.
So you delivered the training courses. Did you develop them yourself? Were they accredited? How did that work in the olden days, like the early days of ITIL? How did that work?
Well, the ITIL courseware, you had to develop it yourself based on the ITIL books, obviously, or you could buy it in from an accredited vendor. In the UK, there were a couple of vendors that were already accredited, and so we got one of the UK guys in to help us out with developing our own courseware for ITIL.
Because this was like 91, 92?
This was early 90s. 91, 92. So we got those people in. We developed our own courseware, and we had that accredited originally by the English institution that gave out the accreditations, ISEB. Later, not soon after, Exin in the Netherlands came around and organized all the accreditations around ITIL as well, and certifications. So we got accredited to deliver those courses and organize for people to go to exams and get certified. And we literally did thousands and thousands of people ran through our programs and got certified. Even to this day, via LinkedIn, a lot of people contact me going, "Hey, I remember you from way back when, and do you remember me when I was in your class?" And I sometimes do, but not quite often.
But you did more with ITIL and service management, because Exin actually asked you to create the service management exams. Because with ITIL version 1, you had your foundation courses, and then you could either choose to do like practitioner style courses, or you go for your service management exams, which was at that time 2-3 hour written exams for service support and service delivery. And you were actually one of the people that wrote those exams or created those exams, right?
The exams were based on a case study, and that was obviously the part that had to come from practitioners like myself. So I was invited to write exams after I've done a lot of exam marking for quite a while. I was an exam marker for Exin for like 2 years. And then they came to me and said, "Hey, we'd also like you to create some exams for us." So I decided to devote some time to that. And the exams were put in front of the examination committee. And after a bit of ping pong balling, hands and forth, they were put live, and a lot of people took those exams. But they were case study based exams, so they had to reflect real world experiences and a real world organization and the ins and outs that go with it. That was a lot of fun to do, and I really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah. What a lot of people don't know is that your love for processes, and that's probably why you got so entwined with the whole ITIL service management world. It's not just your technical background through the mainframe business and capacity management, because that's definitely where your desire for cross-siloed processes happened. But what a lot of people don't know is that you worked in commercial kitchens for a long time.
Yes.
And
this is where I'm gonna need a coffee to go with that. Commercial kitchen experience. Well, that's
in relation to processes and ITIL service management.
We're not swapping recipes. All right.
No, we're not talking recipes, but because I really feel that is where your process mindset developed.
Correct. If some of you have actually worked in a large commercial kitchen that puts out hundreds or thousands of dishes a day, basically, they would know what I'm talking about. A commercial kitchen is organized in a military style, basically. So everybody has a station, and you've got prep work to do on your station to make sure that you're ready when the orders come in, and your station delivers that one thing. But you're also very aware of how all the others are doing in the kitchen in their own stations. If an order comes in, then it has to be delivered at the same time, to ensure that it gets out to the client. So you can't drop the ball there at all. You have to be ready. You have to think up front, for my activity, what do I need, and even what do I need from whom, and what do I deliver to whom at which point in time. It was like a military operation. That's the best way you can compare this. Very process driven, very organized, very hierarchical as well. And it had to be very hierarchical. The one in charge had to say, this had to happen now. And there was no umming and ahhing. Why don't we do it like this? I don't feel like it. Or not today. No, it's got to be done right now, right here. In the way that I described it, me, the chef. And I really love that whole experience, that whole togetherness, working together towards a common goal, and being able to 100% rely and depend on each other all the time. Even when things were down, when a hot pan was poured out, fell over, and hot oil poured out on someone's leg, everybody was there to help, and while the others took up the slack, and the recipe generation continued and all that. So there's camaraderie at the same time, and a process-driven environment to deliver everything for the client, and that really stuck with me. And I've worked in that commercial kitchen for like 6 years. Ended up as a sous chef, so I got some of the hierarchy in me as well there, and I love that period. And I still love cooking as well, but that's where my love for process-driven environments basically came from. And if you're in the military, if you have been in the military for quite a while, you might recognize that style of operation as well, and it works in a commercial organization as well, to a certain extent.
Yeah. So it's discipline, it's process driven, but it's also clear communication lines and trust in each other, that everybody knows what they're doing and everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes, complete clarity. That's the thing. Complete clarity and simplification in what you're doing. Those are the main points, plus process driven, and making sure that you can rely on each and everyone around you. Those are the things that I got out of that, and which has driven me in my professional career later down the track, and brought me to where we are today with the self-assessments and the KanBans and process-driven argumentation and question-based layering around that as well. That's the drive that has put me forward over the years, and where we are now.
Yeah. So talk to me about that clarity, because you've already mentioned, as a chief innovation officer, you're the brain behind the self-assessment toolkits and the critical capability KanBans. So with the team, you've developed this, and you've always had this desire to help organizations to create clarity. Can you dive a bit deeper into why the need for clarity, and why is clarity so important in organizations?
When I was a service manager for a large energy company back in the Netherlands, I was reporting directly to the CIO, and with a multi-million-dollar budget. And I loved my job because I knew all my processes, and I had the background in the majority of these processes as an active professional as well. So I knew exactly what I was doing. And then one day, my CIO called me into his office and sat me down and said, "Well, I've been called to do something else in the organization. So I want you to be acting CIO from today on." Like, oh, I wasn't prepared for that at all. I was a service manager. Service manager is accustomed and used to thinking in kind of rigid procedures and actions, and this needs to be done, these 10 steps to get there. But all of a sudden, I got thrown into the chair of a CIO, and that gave me some sleepless nights because I had no idea back then what to what to oversee and what to manage, basically. What projects were there? I knew from my service management background, obviously, but now I had to deal with a whole different layer of the organization, which was way more business driven than the one I dealt with before. Basically only business driven, because as a CIO, I reported directly to the CEO, obviously. So that made me wonder, there has to be an easier way for people like me who got thrown into a role that they're not prepared for, to quickly get their feet on the ground. And that stuck with me for years, basically. There has to be a better way. There has to be an easier, faster way to get up to scratch with what's needed to get to the results that you want to get to as soon as you can. Because in the energy company, the main thing was privatization of the energy company, which was government controlled by then. And that was a whole different mindset that needed to take place in the organization, with a whole different set of criteria and questions and people as well. So there were large layoffs we had to go through, and rehiring, reprocesses. It was a huge learning curve and a huge learning experience back then. But that has always stuck with me. There has to be an easier way. And that easier way, I came upon that with organizing questions to ask for people, basically. That's the easier way, to go to the why of something. The questions are basically other ways to dive deep into what the reason is for doing something, and to uncover unhidden gems in your organization, or things that you haven't even considered or done yet. I just wished back then that I had a massive list of questions that I could just go over and go like, I've covered that. I'd go, I haven't thought of that. We need to take care of that one. That stuck with me forever. And that's when, back when you and I, in 2000, came to Australia, was the first thing we did. Remember that? We came to, you might be able to tell that story. What did we do? It was the first thing we did when we came to Australia, and we got our very first assignment.
I raced to Officeworks to get a printer. Because we were staying in hotels and there was nothing. And then we had to run back to the Netherlands because we were on the wrong visa. We needed to have a visa to actually perform work and have clients in Australia. So good preparation. You're right, because that was a health check, but that was a service management health check, a feasibility check to help organizations understand their status quo, to understand where they were in their process implementation, in where they could improve on the discipline and the rigor of policy, process, procedures, activities. Again, creating clarity for the management teams as well as the implementation team. So there is definitely a crossover between what we did with the service management health checks back in 2000 to what we do now in the self-assessment toolkits. And then the how-to is the critical capability KanBans. So your career has always been about clarity, about creating innovative ways to understand what's going on. So you had your security programming for mainframes, which is really creating clarity on who does what and who's allowed to have access, etc. Then going into capacity management is creating clarity on the workloads and forecasting and to understand what kind of technology you need to offer the services that you promise to deliver. Then creating clarity and understanding of the ITIL service management frameworks through to what we do now. There's also this line, this story of risk and risk management and risk leadership. And over the last few years, you and I have been talking more and more around risk leadership and compliance and how important that is. It was important in the 80s and the 90s, but probably more important now than ever before to create clarity around compliance, because it is a bit of a fuzzy subject, and a lot of times when you talk to people, their eyes glaze over and nothing really happens, which is a shame. So what is your definition of risk compliance through risk leadership, or clarity in compliance through risk leadership? I suppose that's the question.
If you take any of the criteria that are in any of our toolkits or books, they basically drill down to the same thing if you keep asking the why. 5 times why, 5 whys, why. It always ends up with either governance, risk management, or compliance issues. That's always the reason why you basically do something. Governance, risk management, or compliance issues. Compliance is a vague area to a lot of people. Why? Simply because there's so much to comply with, and it's hard to keep track of what you need to comply with. There's new regulations coming out on in America, federal level, state level, Europe. You've got the GDPR going on. California does its own CCPA. And there's guidelines coming out from NIST, High Trust, etc., SOC 2 guidelines, Type 2. There's so much to comply with that you really want to make sure that you're covering all the basics. That's what the toolkits obviously do for clients and the questions that they ask. Governance, risk, and compliance. That's the main reasoning why you want to be able to sleep at night as a C-level officer, C-suite officer.
Yeah.
That was my main reason to do all this. I wanted to have a good night's sleep, and that's what I'm getting.
So what's next? Now that you have your good night's sleep, what's the future? Where are you heading? Where are you taking the art of service, or what are you doing outside of the art of service? What's next?
Well, you mentioned it shortly, you mentioned the critical capabilities. That's something that we launched August last year. Mm-hmm. We've always been great at organizing criteria and questions into toolkits and tool sets for any particular topic. And we've got thousands and thousands of topics, and each topic has over 1,000 unique criteria attached to it, organized in maturity levels. So that's great. That's all organized. What we also got was a lot of questions from our clients saying, okay, yeah, I know the questions, but what answers do I need to be looking for? Can you give me some hints and tips and guidelines on that? So we started in August, and they're called the critical capabilities, and we offer them in KanBans style, which means that they're easy to reuse, download, and assign to anyone in your organization, basically. The KanBans themselves, you can access them for free on our site. Commercial licenses are for sale, yada yada, you know the drill. But that's the first thing that we did to actually help our clients also out with what kind of answers do you need to be looking for. And that database is growing massively as well. The criteria database is huge. The question database is huge. But the answer database is the next big thing that's growing rapidly as well. So already got millions and millions of answers in there. So we're really satisfied with it and with the output of it, and our clients are as well. They keep coming back and wanting for more. So we attach a subscription model to that, great, so they can access everything they want at the same time. So done that. That's everything we've done the past year. Now, recently what we started doing is like this, get more active on LinkedIn. Why? Because what we've always done is the content that we have, we put those into books and made those available for sale. A book is a static product, and it's a one-off transaction. It's a transactional model. So client buys, client moves on, and that's it. There's no real relationship going on between our book buyer clients and ourselves. That's the main reason why we created the tool sets and the toolkits on our website, so people talk to us. So what do I actually need? Do I need the combination of something, or is this the right one for me? Yesterday, for instance, I had a conversation in French with a client who was wondering if the cybersecurity toolkit would fit his needs. Those type of things, they're really fantastic. And the client came back yesterday as well, like, I want a bit of this and a bit of that, and how do I combine it, everything in my specific situation? What's the best one? So we're doing more of that, more bespoke, to use a magical word, more bespoke.
I love that word.
Yeah, no, you love that word. That's why I just threw it in there. So we're doing more of that work. The other thing that we're doing is get more active on LinkedIn, like this, what we're doing right now, talking to clients, talking with clients. In December, I started a daily newsletter on LinkedIn. People can subscribe to that. It's called Audit Ask This. And basically, it's a daily topic, and the daily topic, that's 48 questions that you need to ask on the daily topic, and a whole list of possible answers that you need to be looking for that daily topic. Out of nowhere, we got close to 4,000 people subscribing to it, which is a real rush. 4,000 people that get the daily email attached to it, right? The daily email right now, and basically love it. The other thing we do is we post a lot in groups, LinkedIn groups, and what we're planning to do is do a daily live stream for like 10 minutes or something, where we go to where I go through the daily topics and the daily topics and the daily top 10 criteria of that topic, basically. So counting on 10, 9, 8, 7, these are the most important things to do, and these are the answers. Short, succinct, and easy to grasp. So that'll help a lot of people as well by understanding what's relevant in this topic. And that's basically what we're doing. And what you're doing is this style, basically interview style. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so that's continuing. My next LinkedIn Live for next week is also going to be an interview with a lady called Simone. And Simone is an entrepreneur and businesswoman here in Australia, who has not just doesn't just have her own business, but she started a refuge for women that need an emergency place because of domestic violence. And so she's found a location where she's building this house where women can stay, not just for short-term emergency placement, but they can stay for up to 12 months. And there's a lot of risk involved in setting up that refuge, and there's a lot of risk involved in stepping out of her business into this world. And I can't wait to hear her story. So that's going to be next week, which is the 17th of February for us, 16th of February for everybody in the US. And then the week after that, I'm going to do a deep dive into a cybersecurity topic. So that's on the cards for the live stream. I'm comfortable with it being a weekly live stream from now on. So that's it from us today. That's about 30 minutes of us talking. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it. If you have a story to tell, because as I said, it's going to be mainly interview based. There could be a deep dive every now and then on a specific topic. But if you have a story to tell, a business story, a story about compliance or the risk around not being compliant, how you see risk leadership, and how you build clarity within your business, your life, and everything around that, I would love to hear your story. So email me at ivanka.menken@theartofservice.com, and I look forward to hear from you. So thank you, Gerard. Thank you so much for your time today. And we'll continue.
Thanks for
we'll continue to chat over coffee, but we're not going to be live.
All right.
Okay, bye for now.
Well, this was fun. Thank you. Bye.